The Blood Elves of Silver Moon City start in the Eversong Woods, the northern section of Quel'Thalas. Farther south is the Ghostlands, a level 10 to 20 zone. Background: long ago the exiled High Elves landed on the shores of Lordaero. They struck out to find a new home, and after many battles with the trolls, established the kingdom of Quel'Thalas. Using a vial of sacred water stolen from the first well of eternity, the High Elves created a fount of mystical power at a convergence of ley energies in Quel'Thalas. They named this fount in the Sunwell. Its potent arcane magic fed and strengthened the High Elves, and soon the wondrous city of Silver Moon was established. Protected by a magical barrier, the High Elves enjoyed peace for roughly 4,000 years, but that peace was not meant to last. The Amani trolls gathered an immense army, and assaulted the Elven kingdom. Vastly outnumbered, the High Elves hastily struck an alliance with the human nation of Arather. The Elves taught a small number of humans how to wield magic. In exchange the humans aided the Elves in destroying the trolls' power base forever. Over the following years the High Elves returned to their reclusive ways, but during the Third War, the diabolical Prince Arthas Menethil brought battle once again to their doorstep. Arthas required the power of the Sunwell to revive the necromancer Quel'Thalas and raise him, as a like. He invaded Quel'Thalas and wiped out most of its population. In the end, even King Anastarion's son Strider lay dead. Additionally, it became clear that the High Elves had become addicted to the Sunwell's arcane energies. Now that the source of their magic was gone, the few remaining High Elves quickly grew a land apathetic. Prince Quel'Thalas, last of the royal line, returned from his studies in Dalaran to find Quel'Thalas in ruins. Thirsting for vengeance, he gathered the survivors, renamed them Blood Elves, and took a group of the strongest fighters to join Lordaeron's campaign against the Scourge. Due to human prejudice, Quel'Thalas was forced to accept the assistance of Lady Vashti and her reptilian Naga. When the humans discovered that the Blood Elves had been working with the Naga, Quel'Thalas and the others were imprisoned and condemned to death. Lady Vashti soon arrived to set them free, leading them through a portal and into the broken wastes of Outland. There, the Elves met the one being capable of putting an end to their hunger, the renegade Night Elf/Demon, Illidan Stormrage. Certain that the Blood Elves would die without Illidan's assistance, Quel'Thalas agreed to serve the betrayer. A lone representative, Rometh, was sent back to Azeroth with a message of hope for the Blood Elves remaining in Quel'Thalas, that one day Quel'Thalas would return to lead his people to paradise. Rometh had made great progress in teaching the Blood Elves advanced techniques to manipulate arcane energies. With renewed purpose, the Blood Elves have rebuilt the city of Silver Moon, though it is powered by volatile magics. Emboldened by the promise of Quel'Thalas' return, the weary citizens of Quel'Thalas now focus on regaining their strength, even as they forge a new path into an uncertain future. Connections to other Horde groups, though not normally advertised, starting Blood Elf characters can use a orb of translocation to get to the entrance of Undercity. The orb works both ways, so characters can easily travel between the two capitals without having to go through the Plaguelands, which are much higher level zones than the Undead and Blood Elf starting areas. Note that Blood Elf players begin with a friendly status with the Forsaken. Leadership in Quel'Thalas: Lordaero, Regent Lord of Quel'Thalas, leader of the Blood Elves on Azeroth, in the wake of Prince Quel'Thalas' son Strider's betrayal. Grand Magi Rometh, leader of all Blood Elf Magi on Azeroth, and a former servant of Quel'Thalas. Haldoran Brightwing, Ranger General of Silver Moon, the Blood Elves military commander on Azeroth, leader of the Far Striders, organization of Blood Elven Rangers. Lady Leodrin, leader of the Blood Knight Order of Silver Moon City, the order of the Paladin class in Silver Moon. Appearance: males of the race are tall and slender, standing above the average human, and characterized by a lean, athletic musculature, making them seem somewhat thin when compared to larger races such as orcs. Females stand somewhat shorter, just above a human male in height, and have slender, delicate builds. They have a wide range of hair colors spanning from charcoal black to nearly white, and a spectrum of skin colors ranging from pale to tan to ruddy. Blood Elves have very long and thin ears, however their ears differ greatly from Night Elves. The ears of a Blood Elf point vertically, whereas a Night Elf's ears point behind them. Blood Elves also have eyebrows that extend well off of their face, like whiskers. Both males and females are what would typically be considered exceptionally beautiful, with chiseled, refined features. Males can also sport some facial hair, in the form of goatees. Their eyes glow green due to the influence of the vial energies they turn to with the destruction of the Sunwell. Starting area intro voiceover. The past few years have seen unprecedented changes within the eternal land of Quel'Thalas. The Blood Elves, following the will of their crazed leader Quel'Thalas Sunstrider, channel dangerous chaotic magics to transform their sacred Sunwell into a gateway of unspeakable evil. While Quel'Thalas and his demonic masters were eventually defeated, a different kind of transformation occurred within the Sunwell itself, as a dying Naru sacrificed its life essence to reignite the Sunwell into a fount of holy energy. Now the Blood Elf Regent Lordaero sees new hope on the horizon for his people. Over time, the Sunwell's light could cure the Blood Elves of their cursed state, but many still cling to the arcane powers they procured, and are hesitant to relinquish them. As one of the remaining Blood Elves, you must fight to protect Quel'Thalas, and help redeem the soul of your ancient people. This is the pre-cataclysm intro. For nearly 7,000 years, the High Elves cultivated a shining magical kingdom deep within the forests of northern Lordaero. But 5 years ago, the undead scourge invaded Quel'Thalas and drove the elves to the brink of extinction. Led by the evil Death Knight Arthas, the scourge destroyed the mystical Sunwell, thereby severing the elves from the source of their arcane power. Though the scars of that conflict are evident, the remaining elves have banded together and retaken much of their homeland. Calling themselves Blood Elves, these grim survivors are committed to regaining the vast powers they once commanded. Inspired by the leadership of their beloved prince, Quel'Thalas Sunstrider, the Blood Elves now seek out new sources of arcane magic and the means of defending their land against the undying horrors of the scourge. Start and close. The start and close for Blood Elves vary depending on the class. For example, the caster classes, like mages, priest and warlock, begin with a robe. Each one resemble the colors of the class, i.e., red for warlock, while the melee classes begins with a war-like armor, made of mail, linked on the middle. For paladins, or made of leather with a bit of body armor for hunters and rogues. The main colors for a Blood Elf's clothing are red, white, orange, green, blue, and sometimes purple. Most of the Blood Elf magisters use robes with different colors, like red, green, and purple. Reasons for racial abilities. Arcane Torrent comes as natural manipulation of arcane energies from the Sunwell, and allows the elves to tap into and unleash the magic that is their birthright. The elves have long delved into the magical and arcane as evident by their cultural centerpiece, the Sunwell. Thus, they have developed a natural arcane affinity, as a result of the well's magical presence, making the Blood Elves naturally skilled with arcane arts such as enchanting. The elves' constant exposure to magic also gave them a natural defense against many kinds of magical manipulation, granting them a natural magical resistance. Class rationales. It is also quite likely that the decision was made to reflect the magic nature of the Blood Elves, as all their classes use some kind of magical powers. With the possible exception of rogues, although that class description refers to them using a touch of mysticism. Also, rogues can be explained as a type of ranger. Additionally, Blood Elves generally prefer to engage enemies at range. Only 3 of their classes are melee fighters. Also, Mana Tap would not work with rage. However, with the recent addition of the Death Knight's runic power mechanic, this is no longer justification, as Arcane Torrent wards the very similar depleting with time resource of runic power, though runic power is magical, and not emotional energy. As seen in the Undead campaign in Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos, and the Blood Elf campaign in Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne, elven swordsmen, with no mana to exist. Theodore the Darkener and the Sunblade Vindicators, no relation to Draenei Paladins, also appear to be warriors. Both use warrior abilities, have no mana bar, and the former is wearing the warrior tier 5 armor set. Because of these examples, it is not unjustified that warriors will become a playable class for Blood Elves in Cataclysm. Mounts. The racial mount for the Blood Elf is called the Hawkstrider, although at first they were named cockatrices, as announced by GamesBot. Blood Elf Paladins, Blood Knights, have a darker version of the Charger, that is black with bronze and red armor. Languages. Blood Elf characters may speak Alassian and Orcish. Trivia. It is interesting to note that the female Blood Elf dance is derived from the dance routine in the music video for Britney Spears' song Toxic, which lyrics happen to be a very spot-on description of the magical addiction Blood Elves suffer. The male blood elf dances almost exactly identical to the dance that Napoleon does in the movie Napoleon Dynamite. Contrary to popular belief, blood elves still have a strong affinity with nature, especially the Far Strider Rangers. Like the Quel'Thalas before them, the Sunwell have druids, but they are not the same as Lordaero or Tauren druids. The blood elf variety of druids are closer to traditional medieval druids, working to conserve and maintain the natural environment of Quel'Thalas. While most cannot shapeshift, they share some of the same druid spells such as speak with plants. However, there is at least one shape-shifting druid, High Botanist Frywin. Blood elf NPCs are the only horde race that do not call out for help when an alliance player attacks them. This is most likely due to an oversight by Blizzard during production of the Burning Crusade. Getting too close to or attacking a blood elf NPC will still summon guards to protect the town or city. Blood elf guards in Silver Moon City and other parts of Quel'Thalas have a distinctly different model and portrait than those used by playable blood elves and by other blood elf and high elf NPCs. Their models were not updated from the ones used in the Burning Crusade beta. They share animations with male night elf models and have unique aggro and death sounds. Blood elf guards are the only guards with monarch. All blood elf guards are male, unlike guards for most other races of Azeroth, except for Ironforge guards. Conversely, all night elf guards happen to be female. Although blood elf eyes supposedly glow green, their models' eyes do not actually glow in the dark. Possibly an oversight. According to the WoW census, there are just as many night elf characters as there are blood elf character, both sides equaling up to 17% of both the Alliance and Horde's total player count. Role-playing a blood elf. Now there's a tricky subject to speak about. One way that makes it easy is to think of a nobleman or a nobleman's guard. They speak what some might call a royal language. Most their words are formal, especially to those of their own kind, or the Forsaken, as the Forsaken are close allies. As for their beliefs, the blood elves mainly have a faith in the arcane as well as the light. They hold a grudge against their high elf brethren as well as their night elf cousins. Even with this hatred, the blood elves are more like the high elves, and one might think